your wine. It's time for Rosé All Day and Julie's a Mess, where we talk about current events and living in an intersex life. And now, here's Julie.
Hi, everybody. My name's Julie, obviously, and thank you for joining us for Just Julie Presents Rosé All Day, Julie's a Mess. This is our third installment. Super excited about it. Tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day, so I am in my Lucky Charms St. Patrick's Day t-shirt with my Patty nails and my green ring, right? You got to represent for St. Patty's Day. And we have a great guest with us this week. I feel like Kermit the Frog at the beginning of the Muppet Show. Like, it is Kat Bays. Kat Bays, everybody.
Hello.
Say hi to Kat.
Hello, hello.
Kat is an amazing voiceover actress. She is married to a wonderful wife named Chris. I met her. She's going to tell us how she met me in a few moments. Right now, we're going to talk about the important part of the podcast and webcast. What is Julie drinking? What is her rosé all day? I've actually been drinking it already. I poured a cup right before we went live, and I was telling Kat about it. This week's selection is Josh. Rosé by Josh Wineries.
Woo-hoo.
It is really good. It's got a bold flavor, and I picked it because there are a lot of Joshes in my life. One in particular seemed to reemerge this week, and I thought it was appropriate that I drink from the Josh bottle. And I even poured a little bit of Josh right into my lap right before we went live. How appropriate is that, Josh?
Okay, par for the course for you, Julie. Par for the course.
So that is our rosé this week. Rosé, Josh Wineries, Josh's Rosé blend. And we're going back over to Kat Bays now. So Kat, tell everybody how we met.
Okay, so for those who have heard about Dark Harbor, there is a sister haunt that opened in 2019 called Dark Horizon. And I was a huge fan of Dark Harbor. I live in Orlando, and so I auditioned and got cast, and so did Julie. And it turns out we were going to be assigned right next to each other at the top of the ghost ship haunted house. Basically, our job was to be big, hammy characters that scare people, but mostly also to interact with them because we were kind of like a photo op at the end. It was really neat. And I met Julie our first day of orientation. We weren't really sure who each other was or like what we were doing. But then by the time we got to where they were like, and you're going to walk up these steps, and there's going to be this big crow's nest, or the captain will be, and you two will be there. And we were like, really? That's what we're doing? And then about 2 seconds later, I caught Julie lounging dramatically against a piece of plywood. And I was like, this is my friend. We're going to have a good time. And then we worked every single night together, the whole haunt. Neither of us took a night off. So we were best of buddies the whole time. So that's how I met Julie.
We didn't take a night off. I mean, there were nights where we had other people up on the poop deck with us because we did have our challenges up there. We quickly realized that we almost felt more like security guards because the plank was an inflatable slide. And we thought, oh, that sounds fun. We couldn't get people to go down it, and we couldn't get people off it. And the people that did want to go down it were flinging themselves down it because they were all drunk.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we could get people to go down it. Just they all wanted to dive bomb like head first. Like they just wanted to yeet themselves off the ship. And I was like, you don't have to take walking the plank so seriously. My God.
We totally felt like kindergarten teachers meets Keystone Cops half the time we were up there. They'd be like, y'all aren't scaring people. And I'm like, what the fuck? I have to like monitor if they hurl themselves down a slide.
Yeah.
The other great thing about that experience was because of my lupus and because of my different issues, I was trying to see if I could do something like that. It was the first acting gig I'd had in almost 5 years. And I remember I was like, it's going to wear me out. I can't do this. And they were like, well, you have permission to like lay on there was a huge cannon up there. And they were like, you have permission to lay on the cannon or to like, you can lay along the sides of the poop deck. So half the time she'd be checking on me and she'd be like, are you okay? And I'm fine. Just, wake me up if I fall asleep.
Yeah, there were lots of times where I'd be like, "Are you okay?" And she'd be like, "Yeah, I'm fine." I'm like, "All right, cool. So I'm just gonna tell everybody you're a dead body, and then when you wake up, you'll scare the crap out of them." Awesome. That's fantastic.
She'd be like, "Are you going on your break?" No, I'm just
Yeah,
gonna
a lot of nights.
whisper.
Yeah, a lot of nights your break was just, I'm just gonna lay here more dramatically on the cannon than I was 5 minutes ago, and I'm just gonna stay laying dramatically. It worked. It worked. We had a blast. I mean, we had.
They would always come back to us though, and they'd be like, "Get off of this. You can't lay on this. You can't lay on that. You can't do this." Like there were nights where you and I were just like, "We're gonna quit. Let's just quit." Nope, can't do that to David. Like I was like, I'm not. I never wanted to quit. Like there were nights I did want to, but then there were not. Like the night I had a seizure, I totally was. And there.
That was a scary night. Like.
And people were like, "You had a seizure," and I was like, "Yeah, I just let it. I just, I'm a method actress, so I just let it."
I mean, I didn't even know it was happening because I think that was actually like the 10-minute span where I actually was backstage for a break, and I came back and I was like, "Are you okay?" And you're like, "I'm fine." And then I talked to my swing, and she was like, "Oh no, she was not fine." I was like, "Oh good, that's great, that's fantastic."
I can take care of myself. I'm fine. I had one the night that it rained, and I had to. And it was so funny because I felt it coming on, but I was on stage. So I pushed myself up between the bookshelf that was below us, where they would like sit and be like, where Copper was all the time. There was that bookshelf and then the wall of the ship. So I squeezed myself back between the bookshelf and the wall. And I just like, it was a full on like seizure. And so I was like twitching. And then I was like, I'm using it to my advantage. And later, the other David came up and he was like, "I heard you maybe had a seizure," and I was like, "I'm fine. I'm fine."
Yeah.
I really need this job. Like I was like, I'm fine.
It was never a dull moment with you. I mean, like we would have, because it's a haunted house, and anybody who's curious about working a haunt who has not worked it before, there's so much downtime that they don't tell you is going to be there, where you're just like, especially the first year a haunt opens, you're just like kind of sitting there like, nobody knows we're here, and the music's playing really loud, and we're just like yelling at people across the haunted house to keep ourselves occupied. Like there was a guy that was like always like two areas over, who was in a crow's nest type area. He would swing down at people, and we would just talk shit to him the whole time. That's all we would do, is just talk shit. And yeah, I mean, that's like all we did, was just the two of us would just sit there and talk shit at people and ourselves, waiting for people to come through to scare.
I mean, you and I pretty much had decided early on that we were like the Statler and
Waldorf, yeah,
of the Muppets. Like we were totally up in the crow's nest, and we were just, even I had a guest on last week, Ashley Taylor, and I had worked with her in Dark Harbor, and I was like, "If you could recast me for anything in Dark Harbor, what would you recast me as?" She was like, "Here's this guy that kind of walks back and forth at the front, and he just kind of hurls insults, and they're not like," yeah. And she was like, "You'd be perfect for that." And I was like, ironically, that's exactly what Kat Bays and I did, and she'll be on the show next week. So I just heard recently that Dark Horizon is not coming back even this year. People have been asking, maybe in the next couple of years, but I kind of love the fact that that was our inaugural gig at Dark Horizon, that we haven't been able to go back in the last 2 years, and that sucks, but that means that our performance really goes down kind of in the annals of what that was supposed to be. And then maybe if they do invite us back in the future, we'll be older and we'll get like a really great crow's nest, and maybe like we really can be like.
Yeah, I mean, I know that when we did it last year, we pitched because we actually pitched the idea of like, could we just do this permanently next year and just be the shit talker?
And they were on board.
And our stage manager was like, absolutely, I would love that. So yeah, it's a damn shame that we could not come back. But obviously, with everything going on, it just wasn't. It's not in the cards. And I know you talked about the fact that the Queen Mary's having financial trouble again, and I'm sure that does not help. Anything that we need to do with Dark Horizon, since there's both sister attractions. So I hope they come back, and I will be there with bells on to come back, because I loved it. I had fun, but hopefully they'll invite us back sometime soon, and you'll be able to come out and do it too.
I know. I would love that. I'd be like, fly me out just like you fly all your other key characters out.
Exactly.
I'll stay at the holiday. I'll stay at the Holiday Inn for 4 weeks.
For Dark Horizon, I picked this specific wine glass for you because it has spiders on it.
Oh, I love it.
Spiders all up in your mouth, which I don't. Yeah, I mean, if people don't know, her other gig was that she had spiders all the time, and she fantastically grossed my mom out when she went through the haunt because you just like puked plastic spiders, and my mother just was like, "I'm done." She like,
and people were like, I loved how people would always come up and they'd be like, "What are you eating?" And I'm like, "Not really eating them. They hang out in my mouth." They're my only friends on the ghost ship.
Yep.
And I would go home at night and I'd pull him out because I chewed on him all night. So I would go home with my friend or whatever, and I'd get back home in Florida and I would go to drink like water with lemon or hot tea. And it felt like I just abused my mouth all night. And so it burned. And I was like, oh, like.
Yeah. Because you would just like gnaw on them all night. Yeah.
But it was fun. I think I still have them somewhere. People are like, what's this? I'm like, they're my friends. Don't touch them.
Now they're there for sentimental value.
And I mean, I don't think we'll ever see our ghost ship pet again. I mean, you would hope we would. I hope he's in storage. Shrew. Buxom Shrew.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. Yeah.
I showed up one night. We were probably like 2 weeks in. And they were like, oh, we found this prop, and we think if anybody can make this prop work, it would be you, Julie. And it was this large rat.
It was the rodent of unusual size. It was an ROUS.
It was huge. And we were all making jokes about it. And I'm like, how the F am I supposed to make this work? But I did. I was proud of myself. Became our ship mascot, if you will.
Yep.
Okay, so this part, and that's how we met. And you did not know me as Bradford then?
No, I did not.
You only know me as Julie. Okay, so we'll talk about all that later. And then we go, at this point in the show, we roll into current events. So we like to talk about current events. What did you think? We talked about the current event last week of Hagen and clearly, Josh's wine is already making an impact on me that I'm talking about Fagin and Sherry.
It's too early for this.
Megan and Harry.
Yeah.
We talked about them last week and their bombshell interview. What did you think about that?
I mean, I was really, on the one hand, I was really glad to see that they got a chance to kind of, really tell their side of what's happening. And I have to commend both of them for being like the definition of grace under pressure, because they both put up with an amount of abuse that I just can't fathom. And I mean, so I studied abroad for a couple months in the UK, and I mean, I could tell you that just like having like walked around and been there, like the way that the press and the way that newspapers work is very different than like American culture. And so hearing about how she was utterly vilified compared to how Kate would do the exact same thing and be totally fine, and they were making up rivalries for them. Sadly, none of that's surprising to me. And so I'm really, really sad that it sounds like, Megan and Harry went into it completely, they wanted to give it their honest effort. She was ready to do the job. She was ready to be, part of the royal family, and she just got no support. And I really applaud Harry for seeing the signs of what was happening to his mom, to his wife, and going, nope, fuck it, I'm out. We're just gonna go. So I mean, for me, that was kind of like the big takeaway, was that I'm glad they made the choice that was ultimately the healthiest for them, but it's a damn shame it ever got to that point. The year is 2021. We should be past this. We should be well past this bullshit.
Things they don't tell you on The Crown.
Right.
And then I saw him in an episode of James Corden. Like, they did this great interview with Harry where he rode on a double-decker bus through downtown LA. You can find it on YouTube. And he's like, I never get to go on these. I've always wanted to go on these.
Yeah.
And James Corden's like, you never got to go on a double-decker bus? And he's like, yeah, no. And it was just a great insight even into Harry. The reason I mentioned it again this week as a topic is because I was rewatching the video. The first time I saw it, it was all in like snippets of the whole interview on CBS this morning. So I was getting like a little bit here and a little bit here, and a little bit here. So this week I went and I watched the whole thing over again. And I have now decided for myself, because I think of myself as a princess, maybe a queen, but definitely a prince. I mean, I definitely like my tiaras. I think I'm going to start referring to things in my own life, like my family life, and maybe like work I do with like different advocates. I'm going to call it the firm. Like, I really like that. I think when I refer to like my family, I'll be like, well, the firm thinks that I shouldn't get breast implants because the firm thinks, like, I think I'm just always going to start saying the firm, the institution, and people will just know that I'm talking about my family.
I love it. I love it.
Could you imagine? Everybody starts doing that, or we get hired by Dark Horizon again, and all the like do's and don'ts. We're like, well, the firm doesn't want us to hang over the side of the poop deck.
Exactly. There you go. That's realistically how we would end up using it. If that would suddenly become the code for whoever's telling us not to do something because they're afraid.
Could you imagine? Sam's like, I'm a part of the firm. Yes, ma'am, Sam, you are.
Sorry, I don't make the rules. You do. That's why you're the firm.
The firm wants us to go on our break and walk across Dark Horizon, even if you're dead tired, in character. The institution, the firm.
The firm.
That's why I brought it up again. The other big thing that's going on a lot lately is people are outside of stim checks not showing up and refunds not showing up. Right. I point to myself because I've done everything blindly that I can do to find out where my refund is and where my stim check is. And I still have to wait 2 weeks to figure out where all that stuff is. I'm like, I'm going to be driving back from Memphis in my new truck with no money for gas because who knows where my stim check is.
Some of us still need to do our taxes, so don't feel too bad.
Well, I had to do my taxes just to get the second stim check, and I still don't have it. So I'm like, ugh, money gods, make it happen. Vaccinations. Everybody's talking about vaccinations. I know that you got your first shot recently. So can you tell us what that was like and maybe how you feel about vaccinations? Do you feel like it's a good thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So full disclosure, I'm very pro pharmaceutical medicine. My mother's a nurse. She's been a nurse my entire life. And on top of that, my day job that's not voiceover work involves working with a lot of pharmaceutical manufacturers and healthcare and pharmacies. And so I do a lot of research. I spend a lot of time looking at studies and study results and keeping up with current events. And so as we were getting closer to developing a vaccine, I was very much a proponent of it. I was making sure I was educated on it. The fact that this is technology that's been in development for 10 years and just really was just kind of waiting to get through the paperwork hoops that you have to jump through with the FDA was a very comforting thing for me. So I was like, okay, cool. This is actually not as new as we all think it is. So when they said we have a vaccine, I was like, yep, sign me up. I'm ready to go. I live in Florida. So unfortunately, we are having a very rough rollout. I don't agree necessarily with the order in which our governor decided to do the rollout because he basically reshuffled things outside of what the CDC recommended. Because the CDC was first like, okay, healthcare, first responders first, and then anyone who's in like long-term healthcare, they're second. And then it should be like anybody who's frontline essentials. So they meant like postal workers, grocery, really anybody who's going to have day-to-day contact with people. That would have also included teachers. And then after that, it would have been, or at least concurrent to that, would have been medically vulnerable, which includes me because I am very young, but I actually have early onset COPD. You know, the thing that they talk about in on TV, like only old people who get it, who may have smoked. There's a genetic factor to it, and I unfortunately am susceptible to it. So,
and COPD, just so people don't know if they're listening, or maybe they do know, is congestive pulmonary.
Chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder.
Okay.
It's a very nice way of saying that my bronchial tubes don't stretch and the way that they should, so that people take a full breath. My wife, who is a singer, I have to use this analogy all the time. I always tell her, do you know how it feels when you take a deep breath and it feels really good? And she's like, I don't know, I take a deep breath. I'm like, exactly. I don't take deep breaths, not without my nifty inhaler. Until a few years ago, I hadn't been diagnosed. I thought I was just a kid who had asthma as a kid and just had damaged bronchial tubes. And they're like, no, actually, you have a disease. So because COVID, while being a vascular disease that actually attacks your blood cells and affects the way that oxygen is intercepted by your blood, it manifests as a pulmonary disease. So it tends to be that the people who have problems breathing are already more susceptible to having severe COVID reactions. So I fit the bill as someone who is extremely medically vulnerable. I wasn't able to get my vaccine until literally 5 days ago. Before that point, there was no real clear communication on how to get a doctor's note or what you needed to do to go get the vaccine. And then they didn't have a whole lot of locations to get it. And then the federal government rolled in with FEMA and brought in these massive pop-up sites all throughout the state of Florida. And I was able to, within like a day of getting my form from my doctor, that they were like, oh, now the state of Florida requires a form. So I just called my doctor, wait, can you fill out this form? They're like, yes, you meet the criteria, come pick up your form. The very next morning, I walked up to a FEMA clinic. The FEMA folks and the Corps of Engineer folks who were there volunteering handed me a couple water bottles. We're like, do you have your driver's license and your doctor's and your form? Great, go get in line. And I was out of there in 90 minutes. And I'm pretty sure about 300 people also went through it with me in about that 90-minute span. So I was really pleased with how the actual process went once I was able to get that far. I'm frustrated that it's taking so long to get people that far. We vaccinated 4 million people on some level, either first dose, one dose only, or completed the series in Florida. So that's already about 20% of our population. We only have about 21 million people in the state of Florida. So I'm frustrated that we still haven't opened it up to people who are just like grocery workers and postal workers and people who like deal with everybody all day long who are extra susceptible. So if you
I think we'll get there.
Absolutely get it.
I think we'll get there. I'm all about vaccinations, but I can't get one. So with the lupus and all the autoimmune issues that have presented from being XXY, I keep being told, don't go get it.
Right.
So my mom's in the same situation, and we talked about it last week in detail. And I said, look, you just have to encourage everybody to go get it. My mom's takeaway was she said she finds that people in her life are giving her pushback and saying, you need to go get it. And I'm like, they don't understand your history. They don't understand your medical. You may have to tell a little white lie and be like, I'm in queue to get it.
Yeah.
So they don't bother.
Yeah, because the other thing is that, yeah, absolutely, because of lupus and other possible immunocompromised positions. When we talk about herd immunity, that's what we need. We don't mean, oh, enough people get sick that now it's no longer a problem. When we talk about herd immunity, we mean everybody who is not immunocompromised, who is capable of getting a vaccine, needs to get it, because then you basically choke out the virus. It doesn't have a chance to spread, which means people who legitimately cannot get the vaccine don't have to be afraid of getting sick from it. So people like you, people like your someone's grandmother who's 90 years old and has an autoimmune disease or is otherwise compromised. Kids who have immunocompromised, especially since in general, right now, none of the vaccines are approved for kids yet. So when you talk about getting your vaccine, you're talking about protecting children as well. So, and I think that's
and her worry, I think, is because my little brother is getting married in the next 2 years. And she was like, well, if we don't get it, we go to the wedding. I'm like, hopefully by that time, everybody that's going to the wedding that could get a vaccination got one.
Exactly.
And she was like, but places are opening that say, you can't come in unless you have a vaccination. And I'm like, well, then.
And I mean, that's definitely more of I think, an immediate issue. I think in the next year, once the rollout has really happened and we've gotten to a point where a significant portion of the country is vaccinated, there's going to have to be a reshifting of priorities and like kind of a reassessment to go, okay, well, if you're immunocompromised, you can't get it. What do we do to ensure that you don't get told you can't fly anymore? You can't.
Right. Maybe you get that card that says, I absolutely can't get it. Right.
Exactly.
But hopefully everybody else did get it and I'll still wear a mask. I think wearing a mask, we laughed because somebody was like, I think we're wearing a mask for the rest of our lives. And I said, maybe not the rest of our lives, but in working in theme parks and for most of my life, there are certain countries where they've always wear masks, and we laugh because we're like, oh, they got a mask on. But in essence, they're doing it as a way to protect themselves. And that may be a global thing now. Maybe we all have to wear masks for the rest of our life. Do I love it? No. But
I haven't gotten a cold or gotten hay fever in a year because every time I've been outdoors, I've had a mask on, and I didn't realize how quickly, you don't think about it, but when you go to a theme park, you're touching everything everywhere. And, you're in close proximity to people you don't know. And I don't think people realize how easy it is to get just randomly sick from random crap. And having a mask does help. So, I mean, I know that when this is over, I'm probably still going to continue to wear a mask around people I don't know. Like, not with my choir group because we're all basically one big social bubble. But like, if I'm at a theme park and I can wear a mask, I probably will, just because it means I don't have to worry about catching some 5-year-old's cold because their parents spent so much money to go to Disney or Universal that they're not going to cancel vacation just because the kid's got a cold. It's a real thing that happens.
I mean, amen to that. Okay. So now it is we're about 26 minutes into the podcast. We talked about some current events. Now we get to go to one of my favorite parts of the webcast and podcast, which is called Julie's a Mess. To verify for people listening or watching, we couldn't decide between Rose All Day or Julie's a Mess. So we intentionally do kind of both, right? My scissoring. We intentionally do both, right? So the main pot, it's mainly called Rose All Day, and we celebrate the fact that I drink wine all day, which,
it's a reason to celebrate.
It's kind of evident 27
I'm on
minutes
glass
in.
right now.
I know, I'm kind of on glass 1.5 too, because I poured while you were talking earlier. Because I'm all about drinking out of Josh's bottle. But I'm jumped.
There it is.
I'll be here all week, people, all week with Josh. So let's see. So in this segment, I tell a story that you would not know, hopefully, that I haven't told you. And we have talked about so much, even since 2019. But essentially, I'll tell you a story that I don't think you know. The story tonight, I think you will enjoy. But heads up for everybody listening at home or watching currently, it is not suitable for work. So if you're listening to me while you're at work, put some fucking headphones in. It is not suitable for children. So don't let them watch. That would be you, Texas Mary. Get Nico out of the room. And yeah, it's some weeks there'll be tame stories, and some weeks they will be not so tame stories. I feel like Kat can handle a not so tame story.
Yes.
This story suggestion came from a good friend of mine, Charles Richardson, who I've known for about 17 years. This is absolutely one of his favorite stories. To predicate it, it did happen when I was not Julie, but as many people have told you, I am the same person, just in a different vessel. So you should be able to, Kat, come up with a creative way to finish the story. So for those of you listening at home, I will start this story with Kat. Midway through, I will stop and I will say, Kat, how do you think it ends? And she will infuse us with her storytelling magic and tell us how she thinks this story might have ended. Kat, 10 minutes on the clock. No, I'm kidding. Are you ready?
Yeah. Do I get more points for accuracy or more points for convincing you that this is the real story?
I mean, both.
Okay,
You get
I'm
more
ready.
points for both.
Let's do it.
Okay. Now, there was a lot of back and forth between my firm, not my family, but my work firm, and friend firms, as whether I could say this next couple of words on TikTok or even on YouTube. I think I can on YouTube because it's a private channel. So the name of this story is Cock Canyon.
Okay.
Cock Canyon. So back when I lived in Los Angeles, my friends and I would often go out to different establishments in the LGBTQ family. So gay bars, gay events, gay parties, whatever. And one of the big things in the area that we lived in was there was a exit off of the freeway between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. So if you're taking the 15 up through all the mountains and canyons, there was an exit called Kenwood, Kenwood, Kenwood. Now, this was a known spot when the bars would close for people to go. They drive off the exit and go down into this deep canyon, and they would go there for, extra entertainment. I mean, really let your mind go wild. Everything happened down there. Everything. There was a creek. There were woods. Along with the woods and the creek, there would have been natural elements like mountain lions, rattlesnakes, because California has 5 of the most deadliest 7 rattlesnakes in Southern California. So you had rattlesnakes, you had mountain lions, you had thieves. There were a lot of thieves down in this area. You got all kinds. You didn't just get gay. You didn't just get the gay community, but you would get like every other community. But basically, they all go down to Cock Canyon for what? Cock.
I mean, cock, yeah.
I mean, yes. Let's see how many times we can say cock during this podcast.
Oh boy. Mm-hmm.
So Charlie and I'd gotten a new car, new to me, and Charlie and I, Charlie had won a toy at some, like, as a door prize. And this toy did everything. I mean, think of that, like, I don't want to give it away because, the toy had multiple settings on it. And I'm just going to leave it at that. And it may be a toy that you're thinking, and it may be a toy that you're not thinking, but for the purpose of Julie's a Mess, it was just a toy that had multiple settings on it. Now, Charlie and I decided to go to Cock Canyon. Oftentimes, we had gone to Cock Canyon a lot during our friendship, but this particular night, we decided to go. And we drive off the exit down to Cock Canyon, and we could see from all the lit cigarettes around that there had to have been probably close to, probably 150 people down in this little canyon of cocks. What, Kat, do you think transpired after Charlie and I parked in Cock Canyon?
So after you two parked in Cock Canyon, you hopped out with the toy on your person in some fashion. So probably like in your pocket or something. And you went flirting and trolling because that's what you do. And you were cruising.
Wait. Flirting and trolling.
Yeah, flirting and trolling, some would call it. It's like cruising, but classier.
And what? Just Julie's classy.
It's like here's where Julie's normal class is, and like this is where flirting and trolling is.
See, flirting and trolling.
There you go. Sorry, so you're cruising, you're flirting and trolling, as it were, and you start talking up a hot dude you find. Of course, Said hot dude is probably not who you would normally go for, but there's so many people there and there's so many different communities that that this guy convinces you that you want to chat with him because he's got like dime bag or some shit in his pocket, but he's willing to share. And so you start getting close. You think about maybe like you're gonna go for it, and then you start to make out, and then he touches your back pocket because he wants to grab your ass, and the toy turns on. At which point you change your mind and find a different dude. And by the end of the night, this pattern consists to the point where you've got 5 or 6 dudes trailing behind you, all trying to get with you. And then you end up not being able to sleep with any of them because you exit pursued by a mountain lion. It's not at all what happened.
It's possible. That's possible. I like it.
I think it would be funny, but yeah.
That is pretty funny. Okay. So the way the story actually went down was Charlie and I parked, and we kind of rolled down the windows so you could hear kind of what was going on. And Charlie, my friend Charlie, first off, Charlie is riding back with me. I go to Memphis at the end of the month to pick up a truck from my cousin that he's gifted me or titled me, so I will have wheels in Nebraska. And Charlie has graciously decided to meet me in Memphis and ride back to Nebraska with me so I don't have to drive alone. I know a lot of my followers are super worried about that. But Charlie's, I mean, if you think Julie's sense of humor is twisted and wonky, take that and multiply it by like 10, and that's Charlie, right? Some of the things Charlie's done in the past in my presence have been rolling down the window as we drive through town and he sees a mixed couple and he leans out of the window and says, "We don't do that in these parts." And then I get a red light. And then I get a red light and I have to stop and I'm like, "Charlie, we're going to get murdered." Right? Just to kind of tell you how Charlie is. And he laughs. He's probably laughing right now like, "Wah!" Thank you. So we're in the car and we're listening and we're just kind of doing our own thing. And Charlie takes the toy out. Now, this toy was a light up baton stick and it had like 4 different settings on it. It had a red light, it had a blue light, it had a strobe, and then it had a function that made all 3 happen at the same time. And I guess you would use it like at a music venue or a rave or something like that. So he wanted, and he'd been playing with it all night. So we're talking and just having a good time. And he goes, "Watch this." He puts it below in the well of the car and he turns it to the setting that has red, blue, and strobe.
Oh no.
And then he throws it up into the dashboard of my car. You heard people slamming doors, saying, "Oh shit, oh my God, get out of here, it's a raid." You heard everything like mounted. You heard truck drivers like, "Oh fuck, I'll lose my CDL license." I mean, you heard everything. And you saw cars just start to like pull out of Cot Canyon at rapid speeds all over the place until it was just Charlie and I in the car with that light blinking. We're both laughing and having a big old good time. And then I took him home and we're still laughing about it. Well, the next night, I went back to one of our local bars called The Hookup. It's in Pomona, California. It's a lesbian bar. I mean, it's a gay bar, but it's more lesbian. And if anybody's in Pomona, California, and you need a place to go to The Hookup, because I have a lot of fun memories from there. Anyway, it's across from the Alibi. Look at me giving out free advertisement. So I go back in and Charlie couldn't go out that night. And I get in there and I called Charlie later on that evening and I went, "You're not going to believe what the conversation was at The Hookup." And he said, "Well, what was the tea? What was the conversation?" And I said, "Everybody was talking about how not to go to Cot Canyon tonight when it closes, when the bar closes, because last night there was a huge police raid." Obviously, people say way more than what they're supposed to, right? Like people were arrested, people were arrested for being gay. And Charlie's like, we didn't arrest anybody. And I'm like, yeah, because we're not cops. But everybody was talking about how they were doing stuff you're not supposed to be doing in public anyway. And the cops showed up and everybody left Cot Canyon. And Charlie and I laugh until this day about the night that we were cops and raided Cot Canyon.
That is amazing and like 100% believable. I love it. That's fantastic. That's
right. Because I'm involved and I would do shit like that. Because... Okay, while we're on the subject and we met, what is one of your favorite stories about me from Dark Horizon? What's something I did that you were like, oh, God. Outside of the seizures, what's something you witnessed or I did that you were like, oh God, this girl is crazy?
Okay, so none of the spiders in your mouth shit was crazy because like that was like in character, but there was one night where you were using Buxom Shrew as a prop, and you were saying the filthiest shit. Like,
I said what?
You're like saying the filthiest shit, and it wasn't like overtly filthy. It was definitely writing that line of like, what are we allowed to say at a venue? And you definitely got a stern talking to from management while we were on duty, and that was like one of those girls. I was like, wow, because like David Wally came out and was like, you can't say that. I need you to not.
I don't remember that. What was I saying?
Oh my God, I think it was things
tell the audience what I was saying.
Oh, I'm trying to remember now. It was things like, do you want to pet my pussy? Because we were saying if Buxom Shrew was a kitty. And you could say, do you want to pet my kitty? And that was fine. The other one was not okay. Even though we were like, technically that's a British term. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And that
we have to quantify at this point that for those of you that don't, we were on Ghost Ship and our story was that we were an all-female crew.
Yes.
Out to sea that would come on to shore like once every 3 years on a full moon, and we would try and get souls to come back to us, male and female, and that we had botulism.
Yeah, we were
scurvy.
We were like starving and had botulism and scurvy, and we had like everybody had like these big pustules and stuff on, and me being
we were supposed to speak in like, well, whatever. They didn't say we had to speak in a certain dialect, but we pretty much latched on to a British, Caribbean dialect. I think a lot of us.
Yeah. And then like I was like, because I was the biggest girl on the crew, like my whole thing was like I would find a big dude and be like, do you want to be my husband? I eat well, like shit like that. But that night that you had, so you had that big prop and we're sitting there and you're bored. And that's what it was. You were bored. We were slow that night. And when people started showing up, you were like kind of testing what you wanted to do with Buxom Shrew. And it was things like, do you want to pet my pussy? Do you want to pet my kitty? And then at one point you deep throated the tail of the shrew. And that was the moment that I was like, I'm never going to meet anybody as cool as Julie ever again. Like, I have met someone truly unique because Julie gives no fucks.
I don't. I give no fucks, especially for art. I think that may have been the night, too, that I think I had just gotten a talking to from management the night before, and I felt blindsided because it was from that girl that had come up that was, like, trying to steal everybody's scares. And I stepped into her, and I was like, you can't do that. Like, we can work in tangent, but you can't just take people's scares. Yeah. And then she got the all-star shirt that night. So I think that next night I was just pissed and I was like, fire me. I don't care.
A little bitter. It's fine.
I was a little bit bitter.
You were like, whatever, I'm going to play with this prop and I'm going to do something fun with it. And then you like deep throated that rat tail in front of me and like another guest. And I was like, oh my God, she's going to get fired right now. It's going to happen right
and that tail was like this long. It was long. I actually think that's funny because I don't remember that. Which is awesome.
It definitely happened. But it's a good thing that you don't remember it because then they can't, nobody can pin you down for it. But let's just say it was a big foam, like rubber foam rat, and it was not fun to like touch and hold on to. So I I was honestly more like, you don't know where that's been, honey, as opposed to anything
I
else.
do remember you said that to me a lot because I would lick him.
Okay, you didn't just lick that though. You licked like everything.
I know, but like, so for those that are watching, you'll get the visual. For those that are listening, you won't get the visual. But it was huge, and there was no way to like put it under you. It was so big.
No,
there was no
it
way
was
to
a
like
puppet.
put it
You
under
had
your
one hand
arm or
in it.
hold it.
Yeah.
Right. So I'd asked them to gut it because I knew it was foam. So I asked them to gut it so I could stick my hand up in and work it like a puppet, and it would rest on your elbow. Right. So I could move it like this and then operate his mouth. And I had to work it into, we had to work it in, and people are like, that's a rat. And I'd be like, you're dumb. It's our ship cat.
Exactly.
It's our cat. And so we would pretend like it was a cat. And I'd be like, do you want to pet a cat? Do you want to pet my pussy? Which would have been very British, but as Kat's telling you now, it got me in trouble.
We were getting told that was not acceptable, even though that is technically. Look, if
Are You
Being Served could do that joke in the 70s in the UK, I really feel like we should have been allowed to do that joke in 2019. But yes.
Yeah, I guess because it was a kid's opportunity and everybody knows. But now we can go back and be like, well, since the top Grammy song of 2021 and 2020 was Wet Pussy, maybe that was about Buxom Shrew.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe that was Buxom Shrew's theme song.
We're going to get a text tomorrow saying, thank you, but you are not invited back. Whatever we do,
David Wally's going to be like, stop talking. Just stop. Okay, David. Wink, wink. Okay, so we moved from, and that was a pretty good one. I was going to tell you an arson story, but I'm saving that one for later.
Oh, okay.
But I feel like Hot Canyon was good. I feel like, St. Patty's Day tomorrow, a lot of people get drunk and they're outside of their normal realm and they do things that are like St. Patty's-esque because, everybody gets drunk. Mm-hmm. So I just felt like that was a good story to tell you. And I thought that you would enjoy that one. So we're moving from Julie's a Mess into the 5-question section. So this week, I am going to ask Kat 5 questions. They may be about us. They may be about me. They may be tinged with a little bit of St. Patrick's revelry, but we are going to do 5 questions right now, and we are getting into it. So our first question is, in honor of St. Patrick's Day, if you could give me a St. Patty's leprechaun name and yourself a leprechaun name, what would it be?
Oh man, that's a good one. I wish you had seasoned these questions before so I could have thought about it.
We got to catch you on the spur. Let's
see. It's very, very in line with
and be nice because my future husband may be listening.
Okay.
So, right. Well, you can be dirty because he knows, but I'm just saying.
Let's see. This is hard. I'm like staring off into oblivion thinking about it. Sorry.
And you're good at this stuff. So don't. Yeah. You're good at this stuff.
The worst one is I already know the one that I would want to do for me.
Okay. What's yours?
So I think mine would be Sunny with a chance of rain.
Sunny with a chance of rain.
Yeah.
You got to get that Irish brogue in there.
Exactly. Yeah. My Irish brogue is not nearly as good as my Scottish, but that's a different question. Let's see, and then let's see. I'm gonna get it. Just give me like 2 seconds. I'm just thinking.
It's live with justjulie.com and Cat Obeys.
Cat Obeys. Let's see. I think I would call you.
I keep pouring Josh in my lap.
You need to stop doing that.
Is that like a spell?
Let's see. How about Misty? The Twin Peaks.
Misty, the Twin Peaks. Because I'm getting breast surgery, maybe. So she's saying
a little on the nose. I'm sorry. Or
Misty.
On the peaks. I don't know. Yeah.
Misty, the Twin Peaks.
Other that was going to be Mossy with the Twin Peaks, but I feel like that's a little much.
Mossy. I actually shaved down there, so it's not mossy at all.
Don't need to know that. That's okay. Okay.
Clean down there.
So.
Misty works, Mossy doesn't. Let's be honest.
I think Misty. I like Misty as well.
Question number 2. Something traumatic happened to me in 2015 when I went to Ireland and England. Do you know what it was?
If I remember correctly, is that when you lost your toe?
Yes, correct. In 2015, I went to Ireland and England. And while I was there in Ireland, I got bit by something. I always joke that I got bit by a leprechaun because we think of leprechauns over here in the Westernized culture as short and lovable and magical. In Ireland, they actually think of leprechauns as mean-spirited fae that are nasty and mean, and they actually can be really tall, actually, too. So went to the Leprechaun Museum while we were in Dublin. That was so much fun. But while I was in Ireland and England, in Ireland, I got bit by something on my left foot, the toe next to my big toe. And by the end of my excursion in Ireland and England and France, it had to come off. Ironically, I named the toe Antolin. You can read about it in my blog if you go back far enough. But I lost a toe. And now I've lost another toe in the last fall. So now I'm down to 8 toes. And people are like, oh my God, how do you exist? And I say, well, I get to wear cuter shoes. So kind of a win-win for Julie. Hilarious. Okay, that was question number 2. Question number 3. If you had to tell a stranger about me in a way to convince them to look at my website or connect with me or watch me, what would you tell them in like a minute? Like, what would you tell them about me?
I mean, so I would tell them that you are one of the funniest people I have ever met. And that if you're looking for a person who is authentic about living an experience that most people will never have the understanding to experience, and you try to educate people, then every single time they get to listen to you, it's a joy. They will learn, they will laugh, they will probably question their morals, but that's a totally different issue. And they'll have a great time. I mean, I can't speak highly enough of you. I think you're a blast. I've loved being your friend, and I find what you've gone through to be inspiring as well as eye-opening for me, and I would want to share that with anybody else who would be willing to listen.
That's so sweet. I love it. Okay, I think we're up to question 4, correct?
Yep.
4.
Yeah.
Do you know the current marshmallows in a box of Lucky Charms?
So, not exactly. Like, I think I could guess it, like, close. Like, it's got to be over, like, 200, at least, in a box of Lucky Charms. And I only know that because I eat Lucky Charms. I love Lucky Charms. They're like my guilty pleasure.
So what are the ones you come across? Like, I know they have rainbows, purple diamonds, horseshoes.
I mean, there's the original. It's heart stars and horseshoes, clovers, red balloons, pots of gold. No, heart stars and horseshoes, clovers and blue moons, pots of gold and rainbows, and the red balloons. Like there's like 8 different ones.
Okay, So
I am in
question.
fact a Lucky Charm nerd. Like that was like
I mean, look at you. You know it, and I love it. I'm wearing my Lucky Charms t-shirt. So, question 5 would be: it now that you know what's in there, if you had to put a marshmallow in there that represented Julie, what marshmallow would be added to the Lucky Charms cereal brand?
I mean, I feel like we have to be on brand for you, and it would just be a pink wine glass for rosé.
A pink wine. I like that, a pink wine glass.
Pink wine
Not
glasses.
at all what I was thinking, but I like it. I think it would be a purple eggplant.
That's also very accurate for you. But I feel like the wine glass is like a brand deal incoming. That's like
Yes, I feel like
you know?
I think the rosé wine glass is perfect. I think also they should add a purple eggplant for
Just
cock. Yeah. Since that's the emoji for cock.
You're just gonna see how many times you can say it now. There should be a little counter when they put this.
Cock-a-doodle-doo. There's a rooster in my house. Yeah, right. I know. I do think, well, I mean, okay, then technically that was a 2-part question. So technically question 5 could be, what's your favorite slang word for cock? See, I said it again.
Oh man. I mean, like, the eggplant's always a funny but good one.
Which one? Say it louder for the people in the back.
Eggplant itself as an emoji is a funny one.
The eggplant.
I don't know. I always feel like the one that makes me laugh the most and that I love the most is bulge. Like the romance novel bulge. Like I'm just.
Did you see that man's? Let's use it in a sentence, Kat. Did you see that man's bulge in his Lee jeans?
Oh,
like my parents are right behind me, and I feel like I should be like this. Like Mom and Dad, you can't hear that. The bulge.
The bulge. Like it puts a whole new spin on Battle of the Bulge.
Ooh, Battle of the Bulge.
Just saying.
Who
gets Friday night for some people?
Who gets Kat and Julie? The Battle of the Bulge. That's another show on another day.
That's another night. Yeah, that's like a after 10 p.m. show.
Mm. So, okay, now we are moving into. We did the 5 questions. That was fun. We had a lot of fun. Happy St. Patty's Day for everybody that's listening. That's tomorrow. Happy you finally get to use your stimulus pay day.
No kidding.
That's tomorrow. If you've gotten it, I haven't. IRS, if you're listening, where is it? I need that money. I need to use it. So now is the part of the show where you get to ask me one question that maybe you've always wanted to ask since you've known me about my journey that maybe you don't understand or you've just not really felt comfortable asking before. The floor is open. You can ask me anything. It can be about my journey or not my journey, or it can have something to do with both, but just what's something you feel uneducated on that you would like to know from me?
So I think one of the things we've not really talked about, and I think you may have sort of already answered it before, just in context clues, but so I, like you said, I never knew you as Bradford. But as an actor, what has that journey been like? And what do you wish that directors like myself and other people knew to help cast more inclusively and to help understand what your range is as a person who's intersex? Because I think that's a really that's a hard line to toe. We want to be respectful, but at the same time, how do we make sure we're looking at your journey and who you are, and we're not excluding you unintentionally?
I think that's a really interesting question. One, because obviously, as I present female more in my life, I make my voice sound more female. I think in the context of where you're coming from and just doing voiceover stuff, I can have a very masculine male voice because I did live a very masculine male existence before I had to transition for medical reasons. So it would be very easy for me to drop back down into a male stylized voice, which is down here, high. I could do something like this. Maybe it sounds fake, maybe it doesn't. I don't know, but I can definitely kind of revisit the lower registers of my voice. But obviously, I'm not going to talk like that. More than likely, this is the voice you're going to hear. This is the contact. I can even go higher and make it more more feminine. For me as an actor, I tell people, when I moved back to California in 2010, and I really started to focus on my acting career at that point in time, and I had not gone to the NIH, and I didn't know everything that there is to know about my situation. It was odd for me that I started booking more female roles. So I would get a call from Central Casting that says, hey, can you come and test for a prostitute on CSI? And I would book female, or I would book female drag queen for Glee, or I would book male for The Middle, but then the same week I would book female for Desperate Housewives. And so for me, I thought, I just must have a really great look as a drag queen that floats over into feminine or femininity. Then I started to realize I do have very feminine traits. So maybe they need somebody. And I know from the Desperate Housewives situation, initially I booked as a male to be an extra in their background. And then they approached me and the guy said, don't you do drag? And I said, yes. And he said, we need a model. Our model failed to show. We don't have anybody else we can use. Can we use you? And so they dressed me in a evening gown and a wig, and they made, and people even that watched that series go, I had no idea that you were male or that you were both. So even having that, but then also having that range voice-wise, that's exciting. And I don't, the fact that I can book as both, that's exciting. And I say that because I am both. I'm both. Now, I've not put a lot of context. I haven't put a lot of context on Bradford because even though he's a part of my life for 43 years, that's what I was. And now I kind of want to establish Julie. But the fact that I'm gender fluid in that's kind of cool, right? It's kind of cool that I could book a voiceover job as a male and know that I just have to talk in that lower register when in fact I present every day as Julie. And it's just something I haven't thought about it, but it's interesting at the same time because I think as I move forward, I'm like Julie, 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 Julie. But now knowing that it would be very easy, but then the part that's kind of like an Etch-a-Sketch for me is I used to sing all the time as Bradford. And I stopped singing after I had to transition because I felt like, well, when I sing, I'm going to sound male. And I had a lot of people that have listened to me and they're like, I don't hear male when you sing. I hear more female. And I'm like, you do?
I also know some women who do tenor, who sing tenor, like in choir, because that's just a component of their register. Like a lot of alto 2s can also sing tenor. So
I sing tenor.
Maybe that's why, yeah.
Yeah, I sing tenor, but I was like, I do sound like a female. It's interesting because I've even started to watch now movies with like Kathleen Turner and Greta Garbo, right? Their voices were very like deeper, on a deeper register. And I listen to them and I'm like, well, if they can sound the way they sound, so oftentimes people will say, well, your voice sounds different and lower and you sound more gravelly. And I'm like, well, Kathleen Turner is more gravelly. And Sharon Stone kind of has a masculine gravitivity to her voice. So that's very interesting to me. I love that that's the question you asked because moving forward, I would like to be available to cast for some of those roles. I think the other thing that was really exciting for me as a female is now that I present female, I remember growing up in acting and community theater and thinking, you would hear actresses say, there are only so many roles for us and we don't get written or we don't get cast or we hit a certain age and we can only be like the queen in Macbeth or the queen in The Lion in Winter. Yeah. And as a male, I was like, those roles are sometimes meatier than male roles. And now, as Julie, if I wanted to get back into community theater, which they don't really have where I am in Nebraska, but if I wanted to, I'm now open to all of those roles, which as an actor and growing, that's fucking awesome to me. The fact that I could be open to playing in Macbeth and A Lion in Winter, and I could be the girl in Pal Joey, or I could be, in a different context. Now I can be the funny girl next door, Gal Friday, where before I couldn't feel that role. It's just interesting and fun, and I look forward to doing all that kind of stuff because it's just another layer of that acting onion, right? So
Yeah,
that's interesting.
well, and so not to talk about myself for 2 seconds, but so one of the things we did with one of the shows I'm working on is as I transitioned out of the role as lead writer, I actually wrote a character that in a large part was inspired by meeting you and talking to you. The character is non-binary. So we actually cast a non-binary actor to play the role. And it just, that got me thinking, we want to have those opportunities and we want to continue to write in a way where those kind of boundaries don't have to exist. I know that like Pendant Audio, who I work with, we have a lot of roles that we don't say are cis, specifically because that's not a factor for us. We want the right person to play the part, and whoever can sell themselves in that part is who we want. So that's where that came from, was just, I
love that. And I know that you and I have talked about it before, and you wanted to get me into voice acting, and
still do. I will
get you a lot going on. You still can. I still want to talk to you about that stuff.
I will get you there one day.
So Kat Bays, you've been a great guest tonight. I want to know what do you currently have going on? Is there something you want to promote for yourself? Go ahead and use this time to do that.
Sure. So I am a regular director and writer with pendantaudio.com. They are one of the longest running podcasting groups out there. We've been doing radio dramas since 2005. Really, I think 2004, but 2005 is kind of like the number we settled on. So I work on a show out there called The Kingery, which is a raunchy, rated R, fun casino gangster drama in space. You guys,
that sounds like my kind of show.
You need to listen to The Kingery. And I also worked on a show that was my own production that I produced with Pendant a few years ago called Genesis Avalon, which is a Celtic themed superhero. And it's all about a journey of overcoming demonic forces and finding who you are and what that means to be a superhero. And it's definitely the rise of a superheroine. And I'm working on the sequel to that show. And it is set in real time in terms of, I finished the first show 6 years ago. The new show's premiering 6 years after. So there's a 6-year time gap. So characters have grown and changed. And it's, if you like Celtic mythology, if you like Egyptian mythology, if you like the story of Avalon and King Arthur, I would love for you to come listen to it. I think you'd love it. And I have a new show coming out this year. So at some point in 2021, Patriot, which is the sequel to that, will be coming out. And it deals we're dealing with the current events now, authoritarianism and the loss of civil rights. And at what point does a patriot stop being a patriot and start being a terrorist? And what is, quote, the right way? Is there, quote, a right way to do any of the things you need to get freedom for people? So it's a lot of meaty subjects we're digging into. And then also, if you're in the Orlando area, I work with Central Florida Community Arts. I am part of their choir. I'm also working with the theater department right now. And one of the big things we're doing is, as we're trying to expand out the theater department again, past the era of COVID, we're looking at ways to make theater more inclusive and safe. And so as part of that, we're starting to branch into audio drama, and I'm helping out as a member of their team to help figure out how we can do that. So if you're in the Orlando area, I highly recommend you check out Central Florida Community Arts. It's a great way to get active in the community. We're all about connecting, serving, and performing for people, but serving is the big thing. We're a community-based organization, and I'm really proud to work with them. That's not
I
very
love
much.
all that. I love that. But because last year I was on the board of Come Out with Pride Orlando.
You were, yeah.
And I love that they always tried to partner with organizations and individuals that were really kind of bringing Orlando up. I love that you're doing that with the theater. I love that you're doing that with the audio. I think that's really important. I also, while we're talking about being seen and visible before we leave this evening, I have a really good friend, Ella Zora, who lives in Spain. She is from England originally. She does a lot of trans and intersex advocacy over there. They are currently in Spain. You can Google it and look it up. They are trying to fight the system, if you will. The parliament in Spain is trying to create anti-laws against intersex and trans people. So they are over there fighting that cause. It is something that's going on globally as we try and open up awareness about being intersex like me or trans like so many others. So if you're looking for something to research and Google and be knowledgeable about, that is something you should definitely direct your attention to. Also follow Kat. You can find her on Facebook. You can find her. Are you on Instagram?
I am on Instagram. I think it's Baby Cat.
Okay, very easy. She spells her name Kat, K-A-T, not C-A-T. Even though she owns a lot of C-A-Ts with her wife, Chris, we are talking about Kat, K-A-T. And once again, thank you for joining us tonight. That wraps up tonight's edition of Just Julie Presents Rosé All Day. Julie's a mess. Obviously, if you listened, Julie is a mess. And our selection this week was the Josh Wineries. There it is for you, Josh Wineries. It was their rosé. I have to tell you, it's nice. It's flavorful. It's got a great bouquet. I enjoyed drinking it this evening. I picked it up at Walmart. I'm sure you can pick it up all over. But Josh Wineries, I had a reason for drinking it. I enjoyed it. I'm a little buzzed, people. Let's be honest. I'm a little buzzed. I've maybe had 3 or 4 glasses. We talked about Fagin and Harry this evening, Harry and Meghan, right? That was 1 glass in.
Yes.
Talked about the firm. And we talked about what? Cock Canyon. So definitely go back and listen if you're just catching the end of that. But it's been a great evening. Join me next week as we select a different rosé. I have a different guest on. I'm not sure who that will be at this moment. And we enjoy Rosé All Day. Julie's a mess. Have a happy and safe St. Patty's Day tomorrow. Love all of you. Bye, everybody. Bye, Kat.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
For more content, follow justjulie.com. That's just Julie, JULEIGH.com. Thank you to our guests, and thank you for joining us this evening. Join us next week as Julie tries a different rosé.